There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
If you are interested in listening to every single episode of this podcast ad-free with no interruptions, then you could subscribe to 3D Printing Basics through Patreon, Spotify, or Apple Music. Every single link will be in the show notes below. Thank you for supporting, and if you're not, no worries, just enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome back to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 35, and in this episode, I'm going to be going over the most important, or what I think is the most important bits of 3D printing news from this past month. With that being said, let's get right into it. So the first bit of news that I think is interesting was the company QIDI, or QIDI, I'm not totally sure how you pronounce it, spelled QIDI Tech. They announced that they are releasing a new printer. Now, QIDI, what they are known for is their printers are known for being able to print the more difficult materials such as PEEK or just engineering stuff. Just the 3D printing materials that you would find like on spaceships or on just anything pretty much industrial. The stuff that the normal hobbyists wouldn't really ever mess with. But I thought this printer was interesting enough to mention it because just like every other company nowadays, this printer seems like almost an exact clone of the Bambu Labs printer. But there are definitely some notable things that I think are different. One main thing being the size. So a Bambu Labs printer, the print volume is 256 millimeters cubed. So that's 256 by 256 by 256 millimeters print volume. QIDI is known for their big printers, and they definitely did that here with their print volume being 305 by 305 by 280 millimeters cubed. So it's definitely a bigger printer and could be useful for anybody who has a Bambu Labs and needs a little bit more room to print. Now, the glaring thing about this printer, or not glaring, I feel like glaring is negative. The highlight of this printer, there we go. The highlight of this printer is its 400 watt active heating chamber. And this is going to be really good because for the engineering grade filaments that people who have this machine are going to be wanting to print, bed adhesion with these engineering filaments is very difficult, especially if you're printing a part that is long or has a lot of surface area that is on the bed. It is very, very difficult to have the print stick to the bed and not have any kind of peeling or warping during the print time. And a heating chamber helps with that because rather than having a material come out of the nozzle at its melting point and then cool all the way down while it's sitting on the plate, the heating chamber keeps it a little bit melted, partially melted. And what this helps is it helps keep everything adhered and flat to the bed. And so a active heating chamber is going to be really attractive to people who are looking to print things like carbon fiber, ABS, PEEK, anything like that, any engineering type filaments. It's going to be really interesting. It also proclaims it has speeds of up to 600 millimeters per second and acceleration of 20,000 millimeters per second. Now, for those of you who don't know, the maximum speeds of any 3D printer, whatever they say it is, you're likely never going to hit it. The maximum speeds are pretty much just clickbait. They just are trying to reel you in. even with, doesn't matter if it's a Prusa, if it's Bambu Labs, if it's Key-Tech, if it's Creality, it doesn't matter. It's very, very rare that you are going to be hitting these max speeds, and chances are you are going to be operating, your normal speeds are going to be about half of that, because even if you can hit the advertised 600 millimeters per second, where technology is out nowadays, you cannot print something at 600 millimeters per second and have it be a good looking print. It's just going to be all over the place. It's going to look terrible. The filament is most likely going to be under extruded. And so I wouldn't even say worry about that or use the max speeds as a reason for getting a printer. But other than that, it's a really interesting printer. I like it because of the size. Of course, Bambu clones, they're popular because it's a good style printer. It's a good model, and it makes sense why everybody's copying it. And the big thing for me, though, is that there's no AMS. So I would seriously consider buying some of these Bambu clones, but none of them come with an AMS. And for somebody like me who prints a lot of multicolor prints, it's going to be pretty hard to do when there's no AMS. So just something to think about. But Key-Tech is pretty interesting and definitely something worth considering if you're looking for a new printer, and especially if you're looking to print the more complex and higher engineering grade filaments. Moving on, I would like to talk about something that is officially something that is related to Bambu Labs, and that is a new nozzle that is coming. So for those of you that don't know, E3D has been working with Bambu Labs, officially licensed by Bambu Labs, to create accessories and mainly nozzles, and they have done that with this new nozzle. E3D has actually collaborated with Diamondback Nozzles to create an advertised all-in-one diamond-tipped nozzle. And the main selling point for this nozzle is that it's abrasion resistant, and you could theoretically print anything that you would want, including metal, PEEK, anything with abrasives in it, because of the diamond tip that this nozzle has. And for me, this is very interesting. It's definitely interesting because Bambu Labs for a long time didn't license to anybody, so you couldn't find any like aftermarket or third-party parts for Bambu Labs that was officially licensed by them. You just kind of had the open source stuff like the AMS modifications. You had stuff like that, and chances are it was going to be pretty good, but you couldn't officially trust them because they didn't have the official license by Bambu Lab. But E3D now has that, and so now they're coming out with these new parts that are officially licensed by Bambu Lab. It's pretty interesting to see what they're going to come up with. And just a side note, Bambu Labs has said that they're going to take any and all licensing fees that they receive, and they're going to be donating them to charitable causes, which I think is a really nice thing to do from a company, especially a company that's brand new. Well, not brand new, they're a few years old, but a still relatively new company that is still trying to insert themselves in their space. The one negative I would say to this nozzle, to this hot end, I keep saying nozzle, it's a hot end. It's a fully assembled hot end that you can just plug and drop into your printer. There's nothing extra you have to do. It's as simple as when you change a hot end normally on your Bambu Labs. You just undo the 2 screws, unplug it, plug this new one in, put in the 2 screws, and you're good to go. The one drawback to this is its price. It's priced at $160, which I know is very, very expensive. That's about a quarter of a price of a P1P nowadays, and almost half the price of the A1 Mini. But something to think about is that this might be the only printer you need for the rest of your printing days with that Bambu Labs printer. So is it worth the $160 to buy once and never have to worry about it again? Or think about maybe having to keep buying if stuff goes down, if nozzles break, you're going to have to get new ones, and spending the $11, $15, $20 every single time. So that's just kind of a math thing. It's what you think you're going to be doing with your printers and how rough you're planning on running them. If you're only ever going to be printing PLA on these printers, I definitely wouldn't recommend this Diamondback nozzle. One, because of the price. It's super expensive, $160 US. Not sure if that's going to be worth it to anybody that is just printing PLA. And also, settings change when you use something that's a Diamondback nozzle. And when you step up pretty much anything from steel to hardened steel or from brass to steel, the print settings to make PLA or PETG or any other filament look perfect, it's going to change from nozzle to nozzle. And so that's something to consider, is who knows if the Diamondback nozzle even prints PLA well. We all know that the Diamondback nozzle, it's good for abrasives, but can't even handle something as simple as PLA. And that's something that I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. That's definitely something to think about. But overall, I think that the Diamondback nozzle is definitely good for people who are interested in printing other materials, specifically like metal, wood, carbon fiber, anything with abrasives in it, because you know you can stick this in there and it's never going to wear, and it's just something that you can use for the rest of your life, really. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. If you're into 3D printing, you know how important precision is, and PCBWay delivers that, not only in custom PCB manufacturing, but also in 3D printing services. Whether you need high-quality parts for your next big project, rapid prototyping, or even CNC machining, PCBWay has got you covered. With a wide range of materials and super competitive pricing, they're your go-to for bringing your designs to life. Check them out at PCBWay.com. Again, that's PCBWay.com, and take your projects to the next level. All right, the next bit of news that I would like to get into from this past month is something that I honestly think is the most interesting bit of news, and that is this Kickstarter coming from somebody in Australia who is advertising their product as an AMS alternative, calling it an Aura or an Auru, AURU MMS. And the MMS just stands for multi-material system. But basically, a engineer down in Australia, let me find his name real quick, Arimus Karosis. He's an Australian-based engineer, and he designed a 5-bay MMU, which is designed for larger scale machines, including clipper and RepRap devices, that also has a drying function and, of course, the filament rewinding. Now, I thought this was a really interesting concept because the Bambu Lab AMS, obviously we know that's absolutely taken over, and there have been several attempts to copy it in recent years, but not really to any success. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that even has come close to getting the recognition that the AMS has, or even has been able to work. I know that there have been some companies that have tried their own versions of AMSs with their machines, but I just haven't found anything that's come even close to the Bambu Labs AMS. So it's interesting that one person down in Australia is coming up with this new system that allegedly could compete with it or even take over. And a few things that I find interesting about this machine is that it's 5 bays as compared to 4 with the AMS. But according to the engineer, you can link all these together. So like with the Bambu Lab AMS, you can link 4 of them together to create 16 color prints. But with this Auru MMS, he says that you can link 6 of these together to get up to 30 bays connected to one 3D printer. And me personally, I just want to see a picture of that more than anything. I think it would look really funny to have 30 different filaments connected to one single printer. But obviously that is very interesting. It's a very interesting point. And also the automatic filament drying. He says that he was able to get some filament dryers in here, just a little bit of some small active heaters that function as filament dryers, which is really, really interesting. I think that would be a really cool thing versus just shoving desiccant into the AMS system like you have with Bambu Labs. If it had active drying and you wouldn't have to worry about the desiccant running out or you having to replace the desiccant, I think it would be really interesting to see if that's something that Bambu Labs sees and pivots and kind of tries to incorporate into their own AMS systems. Now, the downside to this is obviously it's a Kickstarter, so it's in very early stages. I'm looking at pictures of it right now, and it looks like it's almost entirely 3D printed, so it's still very early in the prototyping stages. But another thing is that this isn't made for printers that are designed to have an AMS. Like all the Bambu Labs printers, they're all designed to have an AMS go with them. And the whole selling point of this machine is that it's supposed to go with printers that aren't necessarily designed for that. And so a caveat to this is that he says that you need to install a filament cutter as close as possible to minimize material change waste, which is kind of unfortunate. I know that there would be people who have a Creality or have a cheaper printer like that and aren't super knowledgeable in the space but will want something like this so that they can have multicolor prints, who necessarily wouldn't know or understand or be able to attach a filament cutter close to the nozzle or as close to the nozzle as they can. And so that seems a little bit inhibiting. Obviously, there's nothing you can really do about that. You need to have a filament cutter somewhere, and I'm not really sure if it's even possible to have a product like this come with its own filament cutter. So that's just something that hopefully gets easier to do down the line. Hopefully all the printers that come out from here on out are going to have filament cutters on them and just be able to have products like these just plug and play. That would be super nice. But it's just really interesting to me that one person down in Australia was able to come up with something that, even though it's just an idea and it's a prototype and a Kickstarter for now, could be something that competes readily with the AMS. And last but not least, the thing that I wanted to talk about, I wanted to shout out my fellow resin printers. I know I don't talk about resin printing a whole lot. I don't do resin printing. But Prusa Research, yes, that Prusa Research, the one that everybody knows, they have just released a 5-piece set, 5 different colors of resin that can, the whole selling point is that it can combine, you can mix and match these colors to create basically any color on the palette. And I think that's really cool because I feel like a big holdback to resin printing is that there aren't that many colors available, and even if you can, you can't get super exact color matching, and that would be really interesting if that's something that could be brought into the space. And so according to Prusa, this kit retails for $145 US, which I honestly don't know. Feel free to let me know if that's expensive or not. I would assume that that's expensive for just 5 colors. But it says it comes with bright cyan, bright magenta, bright yellow, rich black, and alabaster white. And Prusa Research says that they can be mixed to create almost any color on the spectrum. And it also comes with a sample book containing the formulas for 44 colors, which I think is really cool. And that's something that Prusa's always been really good about. They've been really good at creating products that really tailor to the beginner. So something like that, where you have 5 different colors, but then they come with a book that shows you how to create different colors on your own, kind of just to get you started, and then you can mix and match and play with it as you see fit. I just think Prusa overall is a fantastic company. I definitely wanted to shout them out. So if you're interested in mixing and matching with your resin 3D printing, then I would definitely say pick up some of this. There are definitely other options too. There are kits that have come out from Formlabs and Form Futura and 3D Jake, so make sure you do your research and don't just go off this because I'm mentioning it. But I think that's really cool that Prusa Research is coming in with something that appeals to the beginner, and that's just something that I'm a big proponent of. All right, with that being said, that's about all I have for you today. I will link in the show notes all of the articles that I received all this information from. And thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.